Hey folks, day 3 of the Father's Day Challenge. Happy Father's Day week. I know for some who this is a new thing, it might be challenging, but continue to press, carve out 12 minutes a day to read with your children. Again, it could be a newspaper article, it could be a magazine, it could be a blog, it could be the Bible, it can be some kids' books or some books from their school, but let's take that time to read with them. Again, it's an invaluable thing. They're learning a really important skill, and one of the best things about it is that it gets you to have some good time with your kids. So this evening I'm gonna read two books with Quentin. One is there's this Helen Keller book that I'm gonna read a chapter with him, and then there's this Marvel comics book that he wants to read about Wolverine. These books are a little bit more advanced for him, and it's always good to read up a couple levels um, from where your kid can read. But again, we get to read and we get to discuss the topic. We get to ask these other questions, so it still makes for a really impactful time together. Quentin, sit back down, please. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. Um, if you've done any reading with your kid, or if you'd like, you could always do a video like I am doing and share it on Facebook or share it on YouTube or wherever. But we're gonna go ahead and get started. All right, sit down, son. And one of the other good things for kids which are small, like Quentin, has a lot of energy like many kids do. And so when you take this time to actually read and be with them, it also helps them practice sitting down, listening, etc. Some of the same things that they're going to have to do when they're in school. All right, buddy. Let's go. Please put down the pillow. All right, this story is about Helen Keller, Quentin. Who was Helen Keller? Born more than 100 years ago.
What?
Yep.
That's ridiculous.
Yes, she was born 100 years ago. Helen learned to speak and read and write. Those may not sound like great accomplishments, but Helen Keller was both deaf and blind. Do you know what deaf means?
No.
That she couldn't hear. You know what blind means?
What?
That she couldn't see. Imagine that your ears are stuffed with cotton. You can't hear anything, not even someone shouting. A blindfold covers your eyes. You can't see anything either. Your world is dark and silent. This was Helen Keller's world. So she was deaf and she was blind. When Helen grew up, few deaf people learned how to speak. There were very few schools for deaf and blind children. Few blind people learned how to read and write. Helen Keller not only did both, but also did much more. She wrote several best-selling books and she gave lectures around the world. She showed that her handicaps had not held her back. Above all, she gave hope to other people who, like her, could not hear or see. Helen Keller was born June 27th, 1880, in Tuscumbia, Alabama. Her father, Arthur Keller, had fought in the Civil War for the South. After the war, he went home to his farm. After his first wife died, and he married a woman named Kate Adams. His two sons from his first marriage, hold on, son. His young wife called Keller Captain. Say Captain.
Captain.
That's what they called their father. In addition to running his farm, Captain was also the editor of the local paper. He was a quiet and stern man. The first girl in the family, baby Helen, lit up a room. She laughed and cooed Helen was the apple of the mother's eye. Her father adored her. Helen, you see the baby right there?
Mhm.
Helen wrote about her early life. She said, "The beginning of my life was simple and much like every other little life. I came, I saw, I conquered, as the first baby in the family always does." I want you to sit down properly, son.
Okay.
Helen was smart. She spoke early. Her first words, she said, were T, 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 and Wah, Wah for water. If she did not know the words for things, Helen made up signals to show her mother what she wanted. She learned to walk at an early age. Soon Helen was racing around the house. Then before she was 2 years old, Helen became sick. You remember what I said? What does blind mean? Do you remember what blind means?
Mm-mm.
Blind means when someone cannot see.
Mm.
And what does deaf mean?
Not talk.
They cannot hear. Helen became very sick. She ran a very high fever. At that time, there were few medicines to cure sickness. The doctor thought that Helen would die. Then suddenly the fever broke. Helen slept peacefully. Her family rejoiced. Their golden daughter was fine again. But Helen was not fine. While Helen's mother was bathing her, she moved her hand in front of Helen's face. Helen did not blink. Helen's eyes stared straight ahead. Kate tried again. She hoped that she was wrong, but she wasn't. Helen was blind, and that was not all. Every evening a bell was rung to call the family to dinner. Everyone heard the loud clanging noise. They stopped what they were doing and came to dinner. But Kate noticed that Helen no longer turned her head toward the sound. Kate called to Captain and his sister Evelyn, who lived with them. They shouted at Helen. They spoke softly. They clapped their hands next to her ears. Helen did not react. Mrs. Keller's fear was true. Helen, her daughter, was deaf as well as blind. Her parents took Helen to a doctor. The doctor checked her, but there was nothing he could do. How, Mrs. Keller wondered, would her smart, beautiful little girl learn to live in her silent, dark world? So we're going to stop there right now, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So we just read about, say, Helen Keller. Say Helen Keller.
Helen Keller.
All right, and now we're going to read about Wolverine. You excited?
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and read Wolverine to him. You fathers, go ahead and do the same thing. Get something exciting, get something that they're interested in, something that might be a few steps above their reading level. But the main thing is take that 12 minutes to engage and read with your children. Happy Father's Day week. Have a good evening.